alternative experience.
The alternative experience. The alternative experience.
Hey guys, Nicky Joe, Eddie Vane here. Welcome to another episode of Alternative Experience. Thanks for tuning in. So today I want to talk to you about CBD, medicinal cannabis and cancer and what the research really says. So naturally, being in an alternative medicine sort of background, I often get asked questions. I don't think they're genuine questions. I think they're quite sarcastic sometimes, but I often get asked questions like, do I think cannabis is the cure for cancer? Now, first of all, before I carry on, this is obviously a very nuanced question with many, many variables to consider, such as type of cancer, stage that it's progressed to, the age and general health of the patient, and of course, things like other comorbidities. However, what I can say in generalization and with confidence is I believe wholeheartedly in medicinal cannabis's ability to improve many aspects of the disease as well as many different forms. Now, I could write a very lengthy article about the history of cannabis, the history of cancer, and a number of the negative yet powerful outside influences related to this story. However, for this particular podcast, I just really want to inform you of the true state of play from a research point of view so you can make your own minds up. Now, although we are told constantly that there is no research to suggest that cannabis has any potential, that's not entirely true. In fact, it's completely untrue. There's actually an enormous library of independent research, both in animal studies and small-scale human trials, that does suggest that cannabis may be an extremely useful tool in the fight against this awful disease, not to mention thousands of years and millions of people from an anecdotal basis. Let's just say that while pharmaceutically funded research is extremely rare, it's a highly researched subject. And all you need to do is type the word cannabinoid, cannabis, or cancer and cannabis into something like PubMed, and you'll see thousands and thousands of results pop up for yourself. But to follow is just a handful of these examples, just to show you how far-reaching the potential really is. Not just the fact that it can, but how many different areas it has the potential to help. Now, cannabinoids, which is what CBD and THC are, they're compounds within cannabis, but they all exhibit a multitude of anti-tumor activities and actions. And I'm just going to give you a few now. So number one, CBD, cannabidiol, is that's been found in multiple research studies to induce cancer cell death, which is something called apoptosis, specifically in breast cancer, but it's been shown in others too. Remarkably, it does this without affecting any of the surrounding healthy non-cancerous cells too. Number two, CBD again also demonstrated an effective chemoprotective action in cases of colon cancer, meaning it protected healthy cells from the effects of the treatment. Number three, CBD was shown to have an antioxidant protective action on the DNA of healthy cells. So we're seeing a bit of a pattern here. It seems to be very good at protecting healthy cells, which I think is one area that really does need to be sort of covered in follow-up studies. Number four, the same study also showed that CBD raised the body's levels of endocannabinoids while also reducing cancer cell proliferation. That's basically the creation of cancer. It's the exponential creation of new cancerous cells. Number five, in brain tumor research, CBD has been shown to block the chemical signal that cancer sends out when it wants to receive nourishment, when it wants to be fed. This is a phenomenon called angiogenesis. Now, angiogenesis is the formation of new blood vessels which carry blood or food to those cancerous tumours. Number six, CBD upregulates something called ICAM1, that's intercellular adhesion molecule 1, which reduce metastasis, which is the spreading. It's also well established in the scientific community that when ICAM is more prevalent, we have a much reduced chance or risk of cancer spreading to other areas. Number seven, further research into breast cancer specifically found that CBD's anti-inflammatory action didn't only just contain the breast cancer, stop that metastasis, stop it spreading, but it also reduced their size and very often their stage. So quite often stage 4 was reduced to 2, 3, 1, or even into remission, etc. Number 8, research has also shown that CBD enhances the intake or the uptake of chemotherapeutic agents into cancer cells, as well as balancing and enhancing the chemotherapeutic agent's anti-cancer activity. Now, my theory from my experience, from all the research I've read, is that a byproduct of CBD's ability to protect the surrounding healthy cells means that it enables a larger concentration of that chemotherapy to reach the unhealthy, unprotected cancerous cells. Again, another area I think needs to be followed up in much more detail. Number 9, THC, which is the molecule that we know gets us high. That has a few different actions, which I'm going to go into now. So it's been found to exhibit a rather effective anti-tumor ability, seemingly cannibalizing the cancer cells. So they, in effect, turn on one another and consume one another. Number 10, THC has also been shown in multiple studies on multiple forms of cancer to exhibit an effective ability to bring on cell apoptosis, that cancer cell death, again, while leaving all of the surrounding healthy cells completely unaffected. So, to surmise, well-respected research has indicated that cannabinoids such as CBD and THC exhibit the following useful actions in cases of multiple cancers. Number 1, anti-proliferative. Number 2, reduces the invasiveness of cancer. Number 3, promotes cancer cell death, apoptosis. Number 4, stops angiogenesis, cutting off vital food or blood supply to the tumour. Number 5, chemoprotective action, protecting healthy cells. Number 6, enhances efficacy of chemotherapeutic agents. Number 7, reduces metastasis via upregulation of ICAM1. Number 8, anti-inflammatory action, reducing size and prevalence of cancerous tumours in cases of breast cancer. And number 9, cannibalizes cancer cells. So CBD also, on another observation, demonstrate a number of benefits associated with the symptom management side of cancer. Number 1, it's a very effective antiemetic, meaning it reduces nausea and vomiting, which is obviously very prevalent when on chemotherapy. Number 2, it improves the appetite, which is massively important because you really do need to be keeping your nourishment up when you're trying to fight this awful disease. Number 3, it reduces associated weight loss. Number 4, it helps to manage the side effects of chemotherapy. Number 5, it's a very powerful anxiolytic, meaning it reduces anxiety often associated with such a worrying sort of prognosis. Obviously, you become a bit aware of your own mortality and helps you to deal with that. And again, another part of that is number 6, it helps neuroplasticity. And this has been shown to improve mood, mindset, and often the acceptance of your mortality. So this is just kind of a small highlight of the positive research. And I only really focused on these particular papers to give you sort of an idea on just how wide-ranging this potential is, how it can compound. You know, doing all these little small bits it sort of really do add up to massive improvements. But there are quite literally thousands of papers on the subject. But these do give you a very good indication of the wide range of benefits that medicinal cannabis seems to offer, or at least needs to be followed up on. Now, many of you reading this will naturally say, well, many of these examples are animal trials or small-scale human trials, and as such, they won't necessarily translate when it comes to human trials, and that is completely true. It is. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be having those follow-up trials. There are a number of considerations to make here. Around the world, millions of people have turned to varying forms of medicinal cannabis in the fight against cancer, and many have experienced the above results. I have personally helped hundreds, and I've seen it for myself. So it might be anecdotal, but I feel it gives me the confidence to recommend this to people, and they do invariably improve. And while this is what we call anecdotal evidence, and it can't be relied upon, it certainly paints a picture of something that needs to be researched further, and it definitely should not be being ignored. That leads me to my next consideration. Many people don't know this, but when it comes to medical research, if any pharmaceutical product displayed even 5% of the potential that I've just mentioned in the points above, it would have been fast-tracked to human trials and in turn sped to market in as little as 6 months. There are examples of this everywhere in the pharmaceutical industry. However, when it comes to medicinal cannabis and any other natural approach that can't be patented, this is obviously where research goes to die. I get it. In the current setup, I understand why. No one's going to fund the research required to validate what many people in the medicinal cannabis industry already know, and that is cannabis is potentially an effective treatment both for the prevention, management, and even treatment of many forms of cancer. And this, in my personal experience and professional opinion, is being very deliberately covered up by the pharmaceutical industry. At the very least, it's a direct result of the plant's inability to be patented. We used to say that who is going to put up millions of dollars required to fund research for a product that by its very nature can't be patented? And I understand that. Who's going to give 30 million quid of their own money for something they can't sort of get a return on? Well, there are thousands of independent researchers that are doing just this, but they're being ignored. So now the goal really has to be to get this out to a wider audience, but they've moved the goalposts. They've literally moved those goalposts completely. They now hide behind the narrative that only official research funded by the pharmaceutical industry can be trusted or even entertained, stating that by default, any independent research holds a conflict of interest, whereas any research that they do doesn't hold the same conflict of interest. It's very strange. From my point of view, I don't need the most corrupt industry on the planet to tell me what I can think. And when it comes to my clients, I just provide them with all of the information, such as the stuff I've just gone through, and explain that it just takes a bit of a leap of faith. And then the results speak for themselves. When you take into consideration, cancer affects 2 in 4 of us, and it's expected to rise a further 75% by about 2025. These new turbo cancers seem to have come out of nowhere since 2021. But if you were to get the awful news yourself, which camp would you be in? Would you take the leap of faith on the medicinal cannabis side of things? Would you do it alongside a sort of more mainstream approach? Would you shy away from the medicinal cannabis and just go down the mainstream approach? What is your sort of personal opinion on it? What would you have to lose is what I would ask. CBD is very well tolerated. It's extremely safe. The very least it's going to do is calm your nerves, relax you, reduce your anxiety, promote REM sleep. And these are all very, very important things when you need to be well rested to take on such an awful prognosis. But when it comes to my own practice, I've been treating cancer patients for 6 years. And thus far, touch wood, they're all still with me. It's not all down to me and CBD. They are open to optimizing all areas of their life, and they do it in unison with many other sort of beneficial practices. And they do adopt a multitude of these practices as well, which I do recommend. But one thing that has stood out is I've also spoken to a lot of people that have been very interested, but have decided not to go down the route of CBD and alternative methods. And I have, sadly to say, I don't know one of them that's still with us. I'm not saying it's specifically down to the CBD, specifically down to this alternative approach, but I do think that it's quite well documented that once you have a prognosis with cancer, in the mainstream medical field, they do tend to feel that that is like your sand timer has been set, but I don't see the same thing with my approach. So something worth bearing in mind. Again, I appreciate this is anecdotal, and there are no doubt many variables to consider, but if myself or a loved one should ever fall into this horrible trap and get this bad news, even though we're obviously optimizing every area in our lives so we don't get there, I would definitely go down the route of the alternative approach, alongside some sort of very, very sort of focused mainstream approaches too. But let me know your thoughts. What would you do, guys? Leave me a comment. Obviously like and share the podcast as always, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. I really would love to get more of you guys following. It really does help. I don't think you realize how much it helps us to get the message out. But until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. Speak to you soon.